Would you bet on Georgia to win the national championship this season? Let's go through it right now. Dean Legge from Dog Post, making you a smarter Georgia fan, and there are, as you have gotten used to, a cluster of teams at the top of college football, of which Georgia is one of them. And the betting odds have been released so far. Now, these change over time. And I'm going to give it to you in terms of percentages because most people are not really degenerate gamblers. But at the lead, you've got Alabama, 25% chance to win the national championship. Clemson, 20% to win the national championship. Oklahoma, 12%. Ohio State, 12%. And then Georgia at 8%. Nobody else is really much closer than that. The Gators with about a 3% chance to win the national championship. So that tells you sort of the landscape there. Is that a good, smart bet? Well, when you look at Georgia's schedule, there's really two teams that jump out at you. Clemson at the beginning of the season and the Gators in Jacksonville. They're talking about doing something that Georgia's not done in 4 decades. So maybe it's not as bad a bet, but obviously when you're looking at even 25% chance that something happens, those are really rough odds. I mean, that's not Alabama's favored, but they're the favorite, but they're not exactly favored, if you know what I mean. I mean, 25% chance of something occurring, that's not even a coin flip. With Georgia at 8%, could you get value for your money? I don't know. I mean, I think at the end of the day, you've got to look at the schedule and what's setting everyone up here along the way. These are the top 5 teams in college football right now. And Georgia, in order to get to the playoffs, is probably going to play 2 of them. Oklahoma will not play 2 of them. Ohio State will not play 2 of them. Alabama may play Georgia. May not. Clemson definitely will play Georgia. So that's part of what's going on here that's affecting both Alabama, Clemson, and Georgia's odds, or that they're all going to play one. Well, they're not all. Georgia's going to play both of them. So that will probably play both of them. That, and then, if you look at Michigan, if you look at odds for Michigan, you really got to go a long way down. I mean, they're plus 15,000. And just to do some real quick math on that, this is what would be in Ohio State's way. You're looking at not even a percent chance to win. Auburn at 7,500. Just not a lot in the way for Georgia or Alabama. I mean, you got LSU at 3,000, Florida at 2,500. And really the big thing here when you start talking about odds, Georgia may be a decent value right now if you're trying to place a bet, because the likelihood that they get to the playoff, I think, is relatively reasonable. I don't know about high, but it's reasonable, what I would call reasonable. Running the table and winning winning the national championship, it doesn't feel like there's anyone out here right now that believes that this is a great bet for any of these teams. So, would you bet on them to win it all? Seems to me like it's a sucker bet, frankly, because they've not won it. Now, of course, the previous 40 years have nothing to do with next year, just like 1980 had nothing to do with 1981 or 1982. So those are things that you have to consider when you're betting. But the question is, and then this has not happened yet, who will be favored in the Clemson-Georgia game? That's one question, because you've got Clemson at 3 times better chance to win the national championship than Georgia. And my suspicion is that line is going to be tight. Not that Clemson will be a touchdown favorite. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. That would surprise me a lot if that were the case. But these early college football lines, they don't normally come out for a few more weeks. I mean, we're in early January right now, and that's what I want to see more than anything, because if you look at Georgia's schedule, there's really 2 games they can lose. And I don't know if they're going to be underdogs in those. You look at Clemson's schedule, there's 1 game they can lose, which is Georgia. Alabama, maybe they could lose to Texas A&M, and we don't know what LSU's got. Alabama also plays the Gators, but Florida's not going to be the same. So I said Georgia could lose 2 games. One of those games was Florida. You look at Oklahoma, who are they going to lose to? Iowa State, maybe? I don't know. And then Ohio State, You got to go way down the line here to see Indiana at 5,000. Unless I'm skipping someone, you've got to go way down the list here to see Ohio State play a team that they are, that they are really challenged by. I mean, they didn't lose this year. They only played 6 games. Excuse me, they didn't lose. They lost. They got blown out by Alabama. But, I mean, look at this Ohio State schedule. They could lose to Oregon. I mean, they could. I mean, they play at Minnesota to open the season, Oregon, Tulsa, Akron, at Nebraska, Purdue, at Rutgers, Michigan State, at Indiana, Maryland. And then you close with Penn State and Michigan State. Both games you should win. The toughest stretch is probably, Oregon, Tulsa. I don't know. I mean, the Oregon game is their tricky game for Ohio State. For everybody else that I mentioned, there's really not a lot of games on the schedule Alabama could lose. There's not a lot of games Georgia can lose. There's not a lot of games. I mean, Clemson's got one game that they're going to look at and say, hey, this is a game we could or should lose. Georgia's got 2. Alabama, I don't know if they've got any. And then you look at Ohio State, it's just not a lot. I mean, they're going to be double-digit favorites in all these games except maybe the Oregon game, and that game's at home. So, that's what you look at here with these betting odds. I mean, it's curious to me, 8% chance to win it all. You do not have, like in years gone by, you've had higher betting probabilities that Alabama would win the national championship. Everyone on this list, with the exception of Oklahoma, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, they've got churn. I mean, you start talking about losing high-level quarterbacks at all 3 of those places. Spencer Rattler coming back at Oklahoma. You got JT Daniels coming back at Georgia. That's why you're going to hear a lot of talk about OU and Georgia as this season gets closer. Doesn't mean they're any better or more prepared to win the national championship, but that's the reason you're going to hear about it, because they had good closes to the season and they've got a lot of people coming back. Dean Legge from Dog Post, making you a smarter Georgia fan. Make sure to click this playlist right here. And if you want to see that for sure. We also talked for a while yesterday on Riding Home, which is in this other corner over here probably. So check that out as well. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the website.